Hey everyone, it's Dr. G here. Today we are going to analyze correlation using an airline satisfaction database. We are going to get started by going into Canvas Module 11 and find individual assignment number 6, analyzing airline passenger satisfaction data. So you're going to open up that assignment. And then what you will find here is go through the objectives, what we're trying to accomplish. Now for this demo, I'm going to go through pretty quickly. You are going to go and download airline.csv and make sure that you download that into your Google Drive. Once you've done that, I want you to click on Link to Correlation Analysis Worksheet, and that will bring you into the document. Now you're going to make a copy of this document right away so you don't overwrite anything in my Google Drive. So I'm just going to put demo, put your last name, anything that's meaningful to you to make it your own. And once you have this worksheet open, correlation analysis on airline passenger satisfaction data set, type your name up here so I know when you turn it in, you are who you are. And then, as I mentioned, this first part here is you're going to download that airline.csv and import it into your Google Drive under My Drive folder. Now, this is really important because this is the path that Python will read. The next thing I want you to do is to open Colab.Google.com. It's a website, so you're going to open that. And once you do that, you're going to get this introductory page here. Click on New Notebook. And then once you should get a brand new empty notebook like this, you can name it Airline Satisfaction Correlation, whatever you desire to keep them, to be able to identify it from your other work. So once you have done that, we are ready to start to analyze. You are simply going to follow the instructions in the workbook for this assignment. Now, while you're in Google or Colab.Google, what you're going to do is identify a few things. The code bar here aligns to this arrow. So you are going to copy and paste the code from the worksheet that I have, the blue code, copy it. Then I want you to go into Google and paste that in that cell. Once you have done that, this button right here is your Run button. Click it, and you will know if it has read the files or the libraries from Python into Google when it gives you a green check mark. It's thinking about it here. There you go. It's a green check mark. Now you know that all of the files that we need in the libraries have been imported from Python into your workbook. Now the next thing that you want to do is you want to go back into your worksheet here and go into enter the data file. So now what we need to do is we need to tell Google where our file is located. And remember when I asked you to upload the airline.csv file into your Google Drive? This is exactly what it should look like right here. If it is in another drive, you're going to have to copy and paste that file path exactly. If the file path isn't there, you're not going to be able to read into Python or into Google that data file, and you won't be able to analyze. So once you've copied this, go back into your notebook. Now there's a couple of things you can do here. You can add code just by that up there, or sometimes if you hover over the last piece of code, you could add it there. So I'm going to then paste it This again, your drive where your file is located has to be identical or it will not work. Now, what's going to happen is if this is the first time you're reading that file in, Google's going to ask you for permission. Just go ahead and get into your Google account, continue, continue, and then it will start reading that file and importing it into the database here. Now, you'll know it's correct when you get a green check because it's going to populate a few rows of the entire data. Now, if you have entered this improperly, you don't have the right file path, you're going to get an error and it will not work until you get that file path exactly as it is here. So our data is good. Go back to your worksheet. We're going to go to the next step. Now we're going to start our preliminary analysis. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is look at the type of travelers that are going on the airplanes. And so we're going to look at the passenger class, like first class, second class, business class, all those fancy things that you have on an airplane and the decisions you have to make. And we are going to look at this data. I'm going to copy it. And class right here, that is the variable that we want to look at. So I'm going to go back into Colab. I'm going to add another box of code, paste it in. Now you can do that with the Control V. Click on it. And then voila, look at this. You get a nice visualization of the differences between people who have business travel in blue here and people who have personal travel. Now, as you look, if you were to look at the data file and the variables, this is a binary data, binary meaning 0 or 1, one or the other, two options. So here we've got this is the class, meaning first class, second class, third class. You've got business travel, and you have business travel and business travel. So you can see here that there's a lot of people who are traveling business in the upper classes. Okay, there you go. So you're going to take a screenshot of that graph and paste that screenshot right here in this worksheet. So I know you've done it properly. Once you've done that, then I want you from the chart output, describe your interpretation between the data and the types of passenger classes. So that's going to be interpreting that graph for me. All right, so you've done the first task. Okay, so now we're going to go down. You've already answered the question. Now we're going to look at ticket class and onboard service. So one of the things that we often know about airlines is what kind of services do I get? And we're going to be looking at how happy am I with the service in the plane? And does the service differ from, am I in business class or personal class? Doesn't make a difference to that consumer. So let's copy that data. And we're going to go back to our notebook. Now there's one of two ways you can add the code. You can add the code here, or you can go up there. Again, you're looking for the blank screen. Paste that blue code from the worksheet in here and press go. Now you're going to see another visualization here. So if you're looking at the onboarding service, we have a scale of zeros here are nulls, 1 to 5. 1 meaning very low to 5 meaning super great. So you can see here on an airplane, we know the first class is the highest level class, usually the most expensive, compared to the third class is sort of the back of the plane. So if you look at this, you can see the levels of expectation of those people in first class based on their perception of the service. And if you look at 5 being the best and 1 being the worst, you can interpret that based on the type of service that they have received on the airplane. So you're going to make a screenshot of that. Going to go back to our handy dandy notebook here, and you are going to paste that chart right here. After you've pasted that, I want you to describe to me your interpretation of that chart and the data. So we've done the original or the initial look at our data. The next thing I want you to do is we're going to focus on correlation. If you remember, correlation is the relationship between two or more variables. So we're looking at two variables in our database, and we're going to start out by adding in what's needed to run a correlation analysis in Python. So we're going back to our Google Notebook. We're going to add our Python code here. Click it. Now this is just adding what we need, the libraries, or actually we're telling it here that we're going to drop those null values that we saw up there, the zeros. Okay, so we know it's a go. We got the check. Let's go back. What do we do next? We're going to direct the file again. So I want to make sure it is reading that file properly because we added some new dimensions here. So let's just make sure we have the right file one more time. And we got a check mark there. It's reading it in. The next thing I want you to do, these are separate lines of code. First one, we're going to look at, you're going to copy this. Going back. We're going to add another line of code. Run that. Good to go. Next line of copy. Remember, these have to be separate or it won't run properly. I'm going to add another line of code. Now this is going to give us a correlation matrix. It's reading, it's telling Python that we want you to take all of those variables and correlate them. So once you have done that, now comes the fun stuff. We are going to visualize the relationships between all of these different variables in your file. Oops. We're going to add another line of code here, and we're going to run that. This is going to create what I call a heat map. And if you remember from your statistics classes, a correlation is the relationship between two variables. And there's two things that we look at in correlation. The first one is the strength of the correlation. And a perfect correlation, as you can see here, if you're looking at the variable age compared to age and age in a record is you're correlating it with itself, which is always B1. So when you're looking at a matrix, you're going to slide down here. Every variable correlated with itself is perfect. There's no variation because we're looking at our own self or that own variable against itself. Okay, so the next thing we look at is let's try to find some variables that are strong. So when you're looking at your matrix, a variable, if you remember, a correlation goes between a perfect correlation is 1. And it could be a negative 1, meaning it's negatively or inversely correlated with the other variable, or a positive, meaning that it's directionally going the same. So as for every point going up, it goes in the same direction. So let's look, in this case, we've got the positive at the top and the negative at the below. So we got the hot and cold here. So let's look at a high variable. So we know that class and class is going to be 100% perfect, and it's positive. Let's look at another positive variable here. Okay, so we've got 1. The closer you are to 1 or negative 1, the stronger the correlation. So we've got a pretty high correlation here, meaning 0.46, so 46%. So here we're looking at online boarding, so meaning you can check in online for your boarding pass and whether or not the plane has Wi-Fi. So those two things are strongly correlated, meaning for every, it's going in the same direction. because it is a positive correlation. So as online boarding goes up, so does the preference for Wi-Fi on the plane. All right, let's look at a negative correlation. So here we've got negative correlation. And I'm going to let's look at this onboarding again. So this is your ability to get your boarding pass online before you get to the plane. You don't have to stop anywhere. You just go right on the plane through your online boarding. Let's look at that with class. Now let's remember here that our class is 1, 2, 3. First class or business class, and the main cabin and the economy cabin. So because the first class is lower, it's sort of inverse to what we think. So in this case, it is 1 meaning the best, but in our case, 1 is the lowest. It has an inverse relationship with online onboarding. So that means the lower the class, meaning first class, um, the more likely they are going to want to have online boarding capabilities because it's an inverse relationship. Now let's look at online boarding and convene or let's look at this one right here. Um, I'm not quite sure why this one isn't the same. Oh, online booking. Okay, let's look at 40% here, or a correlation of 0.4. So remember, online boarding is you get to board with your online, get your boarding pass online, but I also get to book my flight online. I'm not going to talk to a person or walk up. So these things are positively correlated. So the there is for they work in the same direction, meaning the more I book online, the more I appreciate the ability to get my boarding pass online. So that's how you interpret a correlation heat map. So you're going to try to find the strongest ones here. We've got food and drink is highly correlated to entertainment. Those are both important. So you're going to then copy and paste this correlation heat map. And down here in the worksheet, you're going to paste that. Once you have it pasted, I have a couple of different questions for you. Remember, each of these are variables. I want you to do the correlation. Tell me the correlation coefficient between satisfaction and entertainment. So you're going to go back to the correlation table. You're going to find satisfaction with, what was that? Overall satisfaction and entertainment. So the overall satisfaction, which is also our dependent variable here, you're going to take the overall satisfaction with the flight and look at entertainment. So you can see here, this is the correlation coefficient right here, 0.4, which isn't bad. It's not it's positive, so it's moving in the same direction, and it's got a correlation of 40. So go through and answer the questions there and interpret that information for me. The next thing I want you to do is answer this. List the two sets of variables with the strongest correlation. So again, you're going to go back into find the strongest, the highest, whether it's positive or negative, what is the highest set of variables that are strongest correlation, and give me the coefficient there. So then you've done a great job analyzing the satisfaction of the airline passengers. After you've done this, now you're going to put your marketing director hat on and you are going to look at this data and you're going to tell me, as a marketing director, what does this mean to you if you are in charge of the features on the plane, and describe to me, based on what your clients are telling you here, the most important things that you would do based on these numbers as a marketing director. So that's it. Once you have finished the worksheet, you're going to save it. And the things that you are going to, and you're going to upload it into Canvas. Thanks for hanging in there with me. I know that was a long one. It went pretty fast. So if you have any questions, feel free to simply email me or leave a comment below. And remember to subscribe. Take care, everybody, and happy analyzing.